When the one who was the love of your life tries to destroy you from the inside and in a dirty way brings destruction to your family, you discover that miracles are between the lines of an atypical mother's life. Have you ever wondered how far a mother is capable of going for her child? How many sacrifices is she willing to make? This is the story of two women that fate united in a cruel and improbable way. A successful businesswoman who watched her perfect life crumble when she discovered her son had severe autism. Another, a young abandoned mother, forced to work in the shadows of the night to support her special needs daughter. What happens when these two realities intersect? When friendship is born from shared pain, but dark secrets can destroy everything. Prepare for a journey that goes beyond betrayal, forgiveness, and redemption. A story about the transformative power of a mother's love and how it can move mountains, even when all seems lost. Emma Mitchell took a deep breath as she watched the frantic movement of the office through the glass windows of her room. At 35, she was living proof that dreams can come true when two people unite with a common purpose. Mitchell & Sons Pharmaceutical Transport wasn't just a company. It was the result of 18 years of dedication, sweat, and unconditional love alongside Jason. She still remembered that first kiss in Atlanta, when they were both just 17. The summer of 2007 had been magical, full of promises and grand plans. Jason, with his determined eyes and contagious smile, had promised they would build something extraordinary together. And they did. From a small rented office in downtown Atlanta, they had transformed the company into one of the largest pharmaceutical carriers in the country. Jason handled the business, strategic partnerships, and territorial expansion. Emma, with her analytical mind and natural talent for numbers, commanded the entire financial sector with impressive mastery. For daughters came to further bless this perfect union. Madison, 16, was the natural leader, always taking care of her younger sisters. The twins, Sarah and Jessica, 14, brought constant joy to the house with their complementary personalities. And there was Lucy, 12, the family artist, always with a paintbrush in hand and a smile on her face. Life was perfect, or at least that's what Emma believed until the day they discovered there was still room in their hearts and in their family for one more baby. "Honey, are you sure?" Jason had asked when Emma told him about the unplanned, but deeply desired pregnancy. "I'm sure our hearts still have plenty of love to give," she had replied, placing his hand on her still small belly. Adam was born on a sunny March morning, bringing with him indescribable joy. He was a beautiful baby, with Jason's blue eyes and the sweet smile that melted any heart. The girls took turns taking care of their little brother, and the Mitchell house had never been so full of love and laughter. For the first 2 years, Adam seemed to develop normally. He took his first steps, babbled a few words, and interacted with his sisters adorably. Emma and Jason felt blessed by God. But then, little by little, something began to change. It was Madison who first noticed that something was different with Adam. "Mom, he doesn't answer when I call his name," she had said during breakfast, genuine concern in her teenage voice. Emma had laughed at the time, thinking it was just the normal stages of child development. "Every child has their own time, honey. Do you remember how long it took Lucy to talk?" But Madison's concerns proved to be founded. Adam, who previously responded to his name and made eye contact, began to withdraw into his own world. The words he had learned were disappearing one by one, like leaves falling from a tree in autumn. The diagnosis came like a devastating hurricane when Adam turned 3. Autism spectrum disorder, severe degree. The neurologist had said with the delicacy that only years of experience can teach. It will be a challenging journey, but with the proper support and a lot of love, Adam can have a fulfilling life. Emma remembered holding Jason's hand so tightly that her fingers turned white. She had felt the world spinning around her, but at the same time, a fierce determination had been born in her chest. "What do we need to do?" she had asked, already mentally calculating the costs and necessary changes. The answer was overwhelming. Specialized therapies, specific medications, qualified professionals, adaptations to the house, changes in the family routine. Adam's severe autism required full dedication, substantial resources, and above all, infinite patience. Emma didn't hesitate for a second. That same afternoon, she communicated her decision to Jason. I'm going to leave the company's financial sector in your hands, she said, her voice firm despite the tears that threatened to fall. Adam needs me completely now. Jason had agreed at the time, but Emma noticed a shadow passing through his eyes. A shadow she chose to ignore, focusing completely on her son's well-being. The months that followed tested the Mitchell family in ways they never imagined possible. Adam had intense meltdowns, moments when he would scream inconsolably for hours. He developed repetitive behaviors that could last all day, and any change in routine left him deeply distressed. Emma learned to navigate this new world with the determination of a warrior. She studied every article about autism, connected with online support groups, and consulted the best available specialists. Her life completely reorganized around Adam's needs. Jason, on the other hand, began to drift away. "Emma, we need to talk about the company," he would often say. "The financial sector's numbers aren't adding up. I need you back." "Jason, you know I can't go back now." Adam needs consistency, routine, someone who completely understands his needs. The arguments became more frequent and bitter. Jason seemed unable to accept Adam's limitations, and more painfully, seemed unable to accept the changes it brought to their lives. Emma noticed how Jason avoided being alone with Adam, how he flinched when the boy had his meltdowns, how he sighed heavily whenever they had to cancel a social engagement because of their son's special needs. "He is our son, Jason," Emma pleaded during one of their most intense arguments. "He needs his father just as much as he needs his mother." "I know he's my son," Jason replied, but there was something in his voice that chilled Emma's blood. "But this isn't what we planned, Emma. This isn't the life we built." Emma felt her heart break with every word. The man she loved, who had promised to stand by her through thick and thin, was distancing himself when she needed him the most. The girls sensed the tension between their parents and did everything they could to help. Madison took on responsibilities far beyond her age, taking care of her younger sisters and helping with Adam whenever possible. Sarah and Jessica created a special routine with their brother, where they sang his favorite songs to calm him during his crises. Lucy drew hundreds of colorful figures that Emma taped around Adam's room, creating a visual environment that soothed him. But the fissure in the family foundation was widening, and Emma felt she was fighting a battle alone that should have been faced together. Adam's 4th birthday was planned with the meticulous care that Emma had learned to apply to every aspect of her son's life. A small party, just the family, with all the necessary sensory precautions. Soft lights, low music, a cake without artificial coloring, and all of Adam's favorite toys carefully organized. Emma had spent weeks preparing every detail, from the decorations to the menu, everything designed so Adam would feel comfortable and happy on his special day. On the morning of the birthday, she woke up early and found Jason already dressed to leave. "Where are you going?" she asked, confusion evident in her voice. "I have an important meeting with the Chicago distributors. They arrived this morning and want to close the deal today." Emma felt the world spin. "Jason, it's our son's birthday." "Emma, you know this account can represent a 30% expansion in our business. I can't miss this opportunity." "And you can't miss your son's birthday," she retorted, her voice trembling with contained emotion. Jason sighed heavily. That sigh Emma had learned to hate. "A party for a child who doesn't even understand the concept of a birthday, Emma. Be realistic." The words hit Emma like a punch to the stomach. The coldness, the complete lack of empathy for his own son, the reduction of Adam to just his limitations, all of it revealed the extent of the contempt Jason had developed. "Get out," Emma said, her voice low but loaded with a strength she didn't know she possessed. "Get out now, because if you stay another minute, I'll say things we can't undo." Jason grabbed his keys and left, slamming the door behind him. Emma collapsed onto the living room sofa, the tears finally overcoming her resistance. Madison appeared on the stairs, still in her pajamas, having heard the argument. "Mom, I'll help you with Adam's party," she said, sitting next to her mother and hugging her with the maturity of someone far beyond her 16 years. And so it was. The 5 Mitchell women united to give Adam the most special birthday of his life. They sang his favorite songs, played with his favorite toys, and Adam smiled, one of those rare and precious smiles that made all the effort worthwhile. But Emma knew that something had irreparably broken that day. Jason's absence from his own son's party had been the final breaking point in a marriage that had been deteriorating for months. That night, while Emma was putting Adam to sleep, she didn't know that Jason was just a few miles away, at a downtown bar, drowning his frustrations in alcohol and the company of fellow businessmen who had come to the city for business. And she certainly didn't know that on that very night, Jason would meet a woman who would forever change the course of their lives. Rebecca Martinez had learned from a very young age that life does not offer second chances to those born without privilege. At 24, she carried on her shoulders the weight of responsibilities that should belong to someone much older. 5 years ago, when she discovered she was pregnant at 19, Rebecca had felt an unconditional and pure love for the first time in her life. Sophia's father had disappeared the moment he learned of the pregnancy, leaving her alone and without resources to face motherhood. But Rebecca was a natural fighter. She worked until the last possible day during her pregnancy, saved every penny, and prepared a small, loving nest to welcome her daughter. Sophia was born perfect in her mother's eyes, curly brown hair, large expressive eyes, and a cry that melted Rebecca's heart. For the first few months, everything felt like a dream come true. But slowly, Rebecca began to notice that something was different with Sophia. The girl didn't respond to stimuli like other children her age, didn't make consistent eye contact, and developed repetitive behaviors that deeply worried her mother. The diagnosis of severe autism when Sophia was 3 was devastating for Rebecca, not because of the condition itself, but because of the resources she knew she didn't have to offer her daughter everything she deserved. Specialized therapies, specific medications, qualified professionals. Everything cost more money than Rebecca earned in her conventional daytime jobs. She worked as a waitress, a salesperson, a cleaner, but nothing was enough. That's how Rebecca found herself working at Midnight Dreams, a nightclub downtown where men with money came looking for fun and female company. It wasn't what she had dreamed for her life, but it was what her circumstances demanded. Rebecca had developed a carefully calculated persona. Rebecca, the seductive and intelligent dancer who knew exactly how to extract the most money from lonely and frustrated men. She had learned to read people, to identify their weaknesses and needs, and to use that information to ensure Sophia had everything she needed. It was a double life that destroyed her internally, but one she endured because every dollar earned meant a better opportunity for her daughter. On that March night, when Jason Mitchell entered Midnight Dreams with his business colleagues, Rebecca immediately identified him as a promising target. Expensive suit, designer watch, limitless credit card, and more importantly, the expression of a deeply unhappy man. "Care to dance?" she had asked, approaching the table where Jason was drinking alone after his colleagues had left with other girls. Jason had looked at her, with eyes glazed over by alcohol and emotional pain. "Why not?" he replied, rising unsteadily. During the dance, Rebecca noticed how Jason avoided talking about his family, how he sighed heavily whenever someone mentioned responsibilities, how he seemed to be running away from something. "Trouble at home?" she asked with the soft voice she had perfected over the years. "You have no idea," Jason replied, and Rebecca saw the opportunity she was looking for. At the end of the night, when the club was closing, Rebecca made her calculated move. "Can you give me a ride home?" she asked, knowing exactly what effect her apparent vulnerability would have on a man who felt powerful by saving a woman in need. In the car, Rebecca applied years of experience in emotional manipulation. She listened to Jason vent about his frustrations with his special needs son, with the changes in his life, with the wife who had abandoned the company to dedicate herself to a lost cause. Every word from Jason revealed to Rebecca not just a frustrated man, but a weak and selfish man who was willing to betray his family for a moment of escape from his responsibilities. When they arrived at the address Rebecca had given, not her real home, but a downtown building, she turned to Jason and kissed him with a calculated and irresistible passion. Before Jason could fully react, Rebecca got out of the car and disappeared into the night, leaving him completely obsessed with her. Rebecca knew she had hooked a big fish. Now it was a matter of playing smart to ensure this relationship yielded the maximum resources possible for Sophia. The meetings between Jason and Rebecca became an addictive and destructive routine. Jason began to invent imaginary meetings, non-existent business trips, and professional commitments that served only as excuses to spend time with the woman who had become his obsession. Rebecca had perfectly orchestrated the relationship dynamic. She was never available when Jason wanted her, always had other commitments, and maintained an air of mystery that made him increasingly desperate for her attention. "Why won't you ever let me see your house?" Jason would ask, frustrated that they had met yet again in a cheap motel on the outskirts of the city. "My life is complicated, Jason," Rebecca would answer with the studied vulnerability she had perfected. "You wouldn't understand." This response only fueled Jason's obsession further. He saw himself as the white knight who would save Rebecca from a difficult life, never questioning why a woman would need to work in a nightclub to survive. Rebecca, for her part, was playing her role perfectly. Each meeting yielded expensive gifts for Sophia, therapeutic toys, special clothes, and most importantly, money that she carefully saved for her daughter's therapy sessions. But there was one thing Rebecca hadn't foreseen. Jason was genuinely falling in love with her, and this significantly complicated her plans. "I want more than this, Rebecca," Jason said during one of their meetings, holding her hands with an intensity that scared her. "I want you to get out of this life. I can take care of you, give you everything you deserve." Rebecca felt a chill run down her spine. Men in love were unpredictable, and men in love with money were dangerous. "Jason, you have a family," she replied, trying to maintain the necessary emotional distance. "A family that doesn't understand me, a wife who abandoned me for an impossible cause, a son who—" Jason didn't finish the sentence, but Rebecca saw the coldness in his eyes when he mentioned his son. She felt a genuine revulsion for this man who could speak with such contempt about a special needs child. As much as she needed Jason's money, Rebecca had moral limits she wasn't willing to cross, and the way he talked about his family was crossing those limits. While Jason sank further into his betrayal, Emma was fighting a completely different battle. She had found a specialized autism clinic in the neighboring city, run by professionals who truly understood the needs of children like Adam. The routine became exhausting but hopeful. 3 times a week, Emma drove for an hour to take Adam to occupational therapy, speech therapy, and behavioral therapy sessions. There were small progresses, a new word here, direct eye contact there, a moment of interaction that made all the effort worthwhile. It was during one of these sessions that Emma met Sophia and Rebecca. Emma would never forget the first time she saw the 5-year-old girl, with her curly hair and large eyes that seemed to hold deep secrets. Sophia was sitting alone in a corner of the waiting room, rocking gently back and forth, completely absorbed in her own world. Next to her, a young woman watched her daughter's every move, with a mixture of unconditional love and constant worry that Emma immediately recognized. "First time here?" Emma had asked, sitting down next to the young mother. Rebecca looked up, and Emma saw a weariness in her eyes that went far beyond her age. "Second week," Rebecca replied. "And you?" "Third month with my son Adam. He's 3 years old." Thus began a friendship born from shared pain and the unconditional love that only mothers of special needs children can fully understand. Emma discovered that Rebecca was a single mother who had been abandoned during her pregnancy and who worked tirelessly to offer Sophia the best possible treatment. Rebecca, in turn, saw in Emma a strong woman who had sacrificed her career to dedicate herself fully to her special needs son. "How do you manage to pay for all this?" Emma had once asked, noticing that Rebecca always arrived with Sophia impeccably dressed and with all the most expensive therapeutic materials. Rebecca had hesitated. "I work at night," she said simply, and Emma didn't press the matter. The two women began to support each other in ways that went beyond casual friendship. Emma, with her business experience, helped Rebecca navigate the bureaucracy of health plans and find the best professionals available. Rebecca, with her natural intuition and sensitivity, helped Emma deal with the guilt and isolation that so many mothers of special needs children face. "Do you ever feel like you're failing him?" Rebecca asked one afternoon, as they watched Sophia and Adam play side by side, each in their own world, but strangely connected. "Every day," Emma admitted. Like I could be doing more, like I should be more patient, more understanding, more everything. Me too, Rebecca whispered. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and watch her sleep, wondering if I'm making the right choices, if she'll have a happy life, if... Emma took Rebecca's hand. They will. We're going to make sure they do. It was a moment of deep connection between two women who had found in each other the understanding that the rest of the world seemed incapable of offering. Something magical began to happen during the therapy sessions. Sophia and Adam, despite their communication limitations, developed a unique and special connection. While other children played in conventional ways, Sophia and Adam created their own silent language of interaction. Sophia, who rarely made eye contact with adults, actively sought out Adam's gaze. Adam, who had severe difficulties with changes in routine, became visibly calmer in Sophia's presence. "I've never seen anything like it," the therapist commented during one of the sessions. "It's as if they understand each other on a level that goes beyond words." Emma and Rebecca watched this connection with a mixture of joy and tears. Seeing their children interact, even in a non-conventional way, was proof that love and human connection transcend limitations. "I think they are soulmates," Rebecca had said, smiling through tears as she watched Sophia gently touch Adam's hand. "I think so too," Emma agreed, feeling a deep gratitude for having found this family that understood her journey. The friendship between the two families deepened quickly. Emma began to offer rides to Rebecca and Sophia, especially on rainy days when public transportation became more difficult. Rebecca reciprocated by looking after Adam during some sessions, allowing Emma to run other necessary errands. It was a perfect partnership, based on mutual respect and a shared understanding of their unique challenges. Sophia's 5th birthday was approaching, and Rebecca was visibly worried. Emma noticed that her friend had become quieter and more distant in recent weeks. "What's going on?" Emma asked after one of the therapy sessions. "It's Sophia's birthday next week," Rebecca admitted. "And well, we don't have much to celebrate. I don't have family here, and she doesn't have conventional friends to invite." Emma felt her heart break. The idea of a child spending her birthday without a proper celebration was unthinkable to her. "Rebecca, would you like me to host a party for Sophia at my house?" Rebecca looked at her in surprise. "Emma, you don't have to." "I want to," Emma interrupted. "Sophia deserves a beautiful party, and Adam would love to participate. Besides, my daughters would be thrilled to help organize everything." And so, Emma secretly began planning the most special birthday party Sophia could imagine. Madison, Sarah, Jessica, and Lucy were completely excited about the project. They made special decorations keeping Sophia's sensory sensitivities in mind, prepared adapted activities she could enjoy, and even learned some nonverbal communication techniques to interact better with the birthday girl. "Mom, do you think Sophia likes unicorns?" Lucy asked while painting a birthday banner with all the colors of the rainbow. "I don't know, honey, but we'll prepare several different options and let her choose what she likes best." The day of the party arrived, and Emma had transformed her house into a sensory-friendly paradise for Sophia. Soft lights, low music, interesting textures, and carefully selected toys were scattered throughout the room. When Rebecca and Sophia arrived after the therapy session, the reaction was immediate and moving. Sophia, who normally had difficulties with new environments, was visibly delighted with the colorful balloons and special decorations. Rebecca broke down in tears the moment she entered the house. The generosity, the affection, the attention to detail, it was all overwhelming for a mother who was used to fighting alone. "Emma, I don't know how to thank you," she sobbed, hugging her friend tightly. "You don't need to thank me. This is what families do for each other." The party was an absolute success. The 6 children, Sophia, Adam, Madison, Sarah, Jessica, and Lucy, created precious memories together. Sophia smiled more that day than Rebecca had seen her smile in months. Adam, in turn, was calmer and happier than Emma had seen him in a long time. Sophia's presence and the joyful atmosphere of the party seemed to have a therapeutic effect on him. "For a moment, it feels like everything is normal," Rebecca commented, watching the children play. "It is normal," Emma replied firmly. "This is our normal, and it is beautiful the way it is." After the festive lunch, the children spread out around the house to play, and Emma decided to show Rebecca some family photo albums. It was a way to share her memories and stories, further strengthening the bonds of friendship that had formed. "I want you to get to know a bit about our journey," Emma said, picking up several chronologically organized albums. Rebecca was enchanted by the photos of the young girls, the images of the company's foundation, and the family moments recorded over the years. "You've built something truly special," Rebecca commented, carefully flipping through the pages. "It was an incredible journey," Emma replied, a shadow of sadness passing over her face as she thought about how things had recently changed. Emma went to answer a delivery at the door, leaving Rebecca alone with the albums. Curious and engrossed by the stories she had heard, Rebecca continued flipping until she reached the wedding album. The first pages showed a radiant Emma in her wedding dress, surrounded by her bridesmaids and family. There were photos of the ceremony, the reception, the intimate and special moments that mark a wedding. Rebecca smiled as she saw these images of pure happiness, until she reached the page with the couple's official photos. When she saw the groom's face, the world literally stopped. The heavy album slipped from her hands and fell to the floor with a dull thud that echoed through the silent room. Rebecca felt all the color drain from her face. Her breathing became erratic, and she had to lean on the furniture to keep from fainting. Jason, the married businessman who had become her secret source of income, the man who was betraying his family, was right there, smiling and radiant, married to her best friend. The man who spoke with contempt about his special needs son was Emma's husband, Adam's father. Rebecca felt overwhelming nausea as the pieces of the puzzle clicked into place in a cruel and devastating way. The absences of Jason that Emma mentioned, the work meetings that stretched late, the emotional distancing that her friend described with such suffering, all of this was caused by the encounters Rebecca had orchestrated. She was, inadvertently, the destroyer of her only true friend's marriage. Emma returned from the door and immediately noticed Rebecca's state. "My God, are you okay? You're pale as a ghost." Rebecca tried to speak, but the words refused to come out. How could she explain? How could she tell Emma that she had been sleeping with her husband? That she had been responsible for driving Jason away from his family? I need to go," Rebecca managed to say, her voice coming out as a broken whisper. "Rebecca, what happened? You were fine 2 minutes ago." Rebecca picked up Sophia, still in shock. "I have an appointment I'd forgotten about. I need to leave now." Emma was worried by her friend's sudden change in behavior, but respected her need to leave. "Are you sure you're okay to drive? I can take you home." "No," Rebecca replied louder than she intended. "I mean, thank you, but we're fine." Rebecca left the Mitchell home carrying Sophia, and with a broken heart. She had found the first person in her life who completely understood her, who supported her journey as a mother, who offered true friendship without judgment, and had discovered that she was devastatingly betraying that very person. As she drove home, tears streamed down her face while Sophia slept in the back seat, oblivious to the drama unfolding in her mother's life. The days that followed were agonizing for Rebecca. She canceled her next meeting with Jason, claiming to be sick, but she knew she couldn't avoid him forever. The worst part was continuing to take Sophia to therapy sessions and feigning normalcy in front of Emma, while she was being consumed by guilt and remorse on the inside. Emma, in turn, noticed the change in her friend's behavior. Rebecca had become distant, avoided intimate conversations, and always seemed rushed to leave after therapy sessions. "Are you sure everything is okay?" Emma asked after one session, seeing Rebecca clearly agitated. "Everything's fine," Rebecca lied, avoiding her friend's gaze. "I'm just tired from work." Emma knew there was something more, but respected the space Rebecca was asking for, hoping that eventually her friend would feel comfortable sharing what was bothering her. Meanwhile, Jason was growing increasingly frustrated with Rebecca's sudden unavailability. He had grown accustomed to the regular meetings, to the escape she represented from his family responsibilities, and her absence was leaving him anxious and irritable. "Why aren't you answering my calls?" he asked when he finally managed to find her in the nightclub parking lot. "Jason, we need to talk," Rebecca said, her voice carrying a seriousness he had never heard before. Sure, let's go to the usual hotel. No, right here. Jason was surprised by the change in Rebecca's tone, but agreed to talk in the car. I can't do this anymore, Rebecca said without preamble. Do what? What are you talking about? This. Us. This relationship. It has to end. Jason felt like he had been punched in the stomach. Rebecca, what are you talking about? I thought we were good, that you. You have a family, Jason. A wife, children. This is wrong. My family doesn't understand me, Jason replied, using the same argument he had used dozens of times before. My wife abandoned me for an impossible cause. She chose our handicapped son over our marriage. Jason's words struck Rebecca like whips. Hearing him talk about Adam, that sweet and innocent child she had seen interact so gently with Sophia, as a handicapped child who ruined his parents' marriage, brought all the revulsion she felt for Jason to the surface. Get out of my car, she said, her voice icy. Rebecca, you can't be serious. I love you. I want to build a life with you. I can get you out of this life, give you everything you deserve. You don't love me, Rebecca replied with a clarity that surprised her. You love the idea of escaping your responsibilities. You love having a woman who doesn't know your flaws, your weaknesses, your failures as a father and husband. That's not true. Get out of my car, Jason. Now. Jason got out, slamming the door shut, but Rebecca had already made her decision. She couldn't continue to be the cause of the destruction of Emma's family, especially knowing how much her friend was suffering. But she also didn't know how to tell Emma the truth without destroying the only true friendship she had ever had. Jason did not accept the end of the relationship with Rebecca. In the days that followed, he bombarded her with messages, calls, and desperate attempts to reconnect. Please, explain to me what happened, he pleaded in his voicemails. I thought we had something special. I thought you understood me. Rebecca did not respond to any of his attempts at contact, which only fueled Jason's desperation further. At home, Emma noticed that her husband was even more distant and irritable than usual. He started working later, coming home visibly frustrated, and avoiding any interaction with Adam. Jason, we need to talk, Emma said one night, after he had completely ignored Adam during dinner. About what? About us. About our family. About the fact that you are clearly unhappy and it's affecting all of us. Jason sighed heavily. Emma, you know what the problems are. You chose to abandon our company, the life we built together for our son, Emma interrupted. For our child who needs us. For a child who will never be normal, Emma. For a child who... Stop, Emma said, her voice sharp as a blade. Stop right now. Adam is your son, Jason. He is part of us. And if you can't accept that, then the problem isn't with him. The problem is with you. Jason stood up from the table abruptly. I'm working late tonight, he said, grabbing his car keys. Jason, it's 9 o'clock at night. What work? But Jason had already left, leaving Emma alone with the children and the growing certainty that her marriage was irreparably collapsing. What Emma didn't know was that Jason had gone after Rebecca once more, determined to win her back and convince her that they belonged together. Jason had become obsessive about Rebecca. When she stopped responding completely to his attempts at contact, he decided that the only way to understand what had happened was to follow her. For several days, Jason observed Rebecca's routine from afar. He discovered where she lived, a small apartment in a modest neighborhood, and mapped out her work hours and commitments. That's how, on a Tuesday morning, Jason saw something that deeply shocked him. Rebecca leaving her apartment with a small child. Sophia was carefully dressed, carrying a colorful backpack, and held her mother's hand tightly as they walked towards the car. Jason was stunned. Rebecca had a daughter she had never mentioned in all their months of relationship. His curiosity turned into a desperate need to understand. He followed Rebecca and Sophia from a distance, watching as they drove out of the city. When Rebecca's car stopped at the children's therapy clinic, Jason felt a deep confusion. Why would Rebecca take her daughter to a specialized clinic? He parked at a safe distance and watched Rebecca and Sophia enter the building. For the next hour, Jason remained in the car, trying to process this new information about the woman who had become his obsession. When Rebecca and Sophia left the clinic, Jason noticed that the girl seemed agitated. Sophia was having a meltdown, crying and struggling in Rebecca's arms, who was desperately trying to calm her. Jason was about to get out of the car to offer help when he saw a familiar figure running towards Rebecca. Emma, his own wife, ran out of the clinic and immediately began helping Rebecca with Sophia, applying calming techniques that Jason recognized as the same one she used with Adam. Jason was paralyzed, watching his wife and his lover interact with a familiarity that could only come from an established friendship. The two most important women in his life knew each other. More than that, they were clearly close, supporting each other in a moment of crisis. The realization hit Jason like a bolt of lightning. Rebecca had broken up with him not because of any change in feelings, but because she had discovered he was married to Emma. Jason's world collapsed at that moment. He had lost Rebecca, he was losing Emma, and now he discovered that his two secret lives had collided in the most devastating way possible. As he watched Emma help Rebecca put Sophia in the car, Jason understood the full magnitude of his betrayal. He hadn't just betrayed his wife, he had betrayed her closest friend, a woman who was going through the same challenges that Emma faced daily. Guilt, remorse, and panic combined in a toxic mixture that made Jason realize he had destroyed not only his own marriage, but potentially the most important friendship in Emma's life. Rebecca knew she couldn't continue living with this secret. With each passing day, seeing Emma suffer from Jason's distancing, knowing she was partially responsible for that pain, was becoming unbearable. Furthermore, Rebecca had realized that Jason was following her. She had noticed the same car in several different locations, and her street smarts had taught her to recognize when she was being watched. The situation was becoming dangerous, especially with Sophia involved. Rebecca needed to make a decision before things spiraled completely out of control. After much agonizing, she made the most difficult decision of her life. She would tell Emma everything. She called Emma on Friday night, asking if they could meet on Saturday after Sophia's therapy session. "Of course," Emma replied, worried by the serious tone in her friend's voice. "Is everything okay? I need to talk to you about something important," Rebecca said, her voice trembling. "Very important." Emma agreed to meet Rebecca at a discreet coffee shop after the children's therapy sessions. Throughout the week, she worried about what could be bothering her friend so much. When Saturday arrived, Rebecca could barely concentrate during Sophia's therapy session. Her hands were shaking, her stomach was tied in knots, and she mentally rehearsed the words that would forever change her friendship with Emma. At the coffee shop, the two women sat at a secluded table, with Sophia and Adam playing calmly with their toys in a nearby children's area. "Rebecca, you're worrying me," Emma said gently. "What's going on?" Rebecca took a deep breath, knowing there was no turning back after the words she was about to speak. "Emma, I need to tell you something that's going to hurt a lot, but you need to know." Emma felt her stomach drop. "What is it?" "It's about Jason." Emma became very quiet, instinctively knowing that what was coming next would change everything. I know your husband. Intimately." The words hung in the air between them like a bomb about to explode. Emma felt the blood drain from her face. "What do you mean by intimately?" Rebecca closed her eyes, gathering the courage to continue. "We've been having a relationship for months. I didn't know he was your husband until Sophia's birthday party, when I saw the wedding album." Emma felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. The coffee shop around them continued its normal routine, but for her, the world had completely stopped. "You're telling me that my husband, that you and Jason—" "Yes," Rebecca whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Emma, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. When I found out who he was, I ended everything immediately, but—" Emma abruptly stood up from the table, her breathing becoming erratic. "I need some fresh air." She walked out of the coffee shop, with Rebecca following anxiously. Outside, Emma leaned against the wall, trying to process the devastating information she had just received. "Emma, please let me explain," Rebecca pleaded. "Explain what?" Emma asked, her voice coming out as a harsh whisper. "How can you explain sleeping with my husband? How can you explain destroying my family?" I didn't know. Rebecca repeated desperately. He told me he was a businessman, that he was unhappy in his marriage, but he never mentioned your name or... And that makes it okay? Emma asked, her pain turning into anger. You slept with a married man, Rebecca. A man with children. Rebecca knew Emma was right. There was no excuse for her actions, regardless of whether or not she knew the identity of Jason's wife. You're right, Rebecca said, her tears falling freely. There's no excuse for what I did. But Emma, please, you need to know. I ended everything as soon as I found out. I would never, ever intentionally do anything to hurt you. You are the best friend I've ever had. Emma looked at Rebecca, this woman who had become her confidant, her companion on the journey of raising special needs children, her source of emotional support, and felt her heart break into pieces. How can I trust anything you say? Emma asked, her voice cracking. How do I know our friendship was real and not just a way for you to get close to my family? Because you know who I am, Rebecca replied with fervor. You've seen how I care for Sophia, how I fight for her every day. You've seen our connection, our genuine friendship. That wasn't an act, Emma. Our friendship is the most real and pure thing in my life. Emma closed her eyes, trying to process her conflicting emotions. Anger, betrayal, pain, but also understanding. She knew Rebecca well enough to know that her friend was not a manipulative or calculating person. She knew the difficult circumstances of Rebecca's life, her struggle to support Sophia alone. Why did you tell me? Emma finally asked. You could have stayed quiet, and I would never have found out. Because you deserve the truth, and because I can't continue being your friend while keeping this secret. You are too important to me. Emma looked through the coffee shop window and saw Adam and Sophia still playing together, oblivious to the drama unfolding between their mothers. I need time, Emma finally said. I need time to process all of this. I understand, Rebecca replied. I'll stop bringing Sophia to therapy sessions here. I'll find another place so you don't have to see me if you don't want to. Emma looked at her, surprised. You won't do that. Sophia needs these sessions, and this is the best place for her. I won't allow my pain to interfere with what's best for your daughter. It was a moment that revealed Emma's true character. Even in her deepest pain, she refused to harm an innocent child. Thank you, Rebecca whispered. Emma re-entered the coffee shop, picked up Adam, and left without saying another word. Rebecca stood outside, watching her only true friend walk away, knowing she had lost the most precious thing in her life besides Sophia. That night, Emma arrived home with a determination she hadn't felt in months. The puzzle pieces finally clicked. Jason's absences, his emotional distance, his constant irritation, his lies about work. She put Adam to bed, helped the girls with their homework, and waited for Jason to come home. When he finally arrived at 11 p.m., claiming once again to have had to work late, Emma was waiting in the living room. We need to talk, she said, her voice calm but charged with a strength that made Jason stop immediately. Emma, it's late, I'm tired. Sit down, Jason. Something in Emma's tone made Jason obey. He sat on the sofa, avoiding his wife's penetrating gaze. I know about Rebecca, Emma said simply. Jason felt his blood run cold. What are you talking about? I know about the relationship you were having with her. I know about the lies, about the betrayals, about everything. Jason tried to deny it, but the words died in his throat when he saw the expression on Emma's face. She knew. Somehow, she knew everything. Emma, I can explain. No, Emma interrupted him. There's no explanation that justifies what you did. You betrayed our family. You betrayed our son. You betrayed everything we built together. Emma, please, let me explain. I was confused, feeling abandoned. Abandoned? Emma stood up, her anger finally surfacing. You felt abandoned because I chose to care for our special needs son. Because I dedicated my life to giving Adam everything he deserves. You abandoned me for the company, Emma. You chose him over us. I chose my complete family, Jason, including you. But you chose to run away when things got tough. Jason knew she was right. He had made the selfish decision to seek an escape instead of facing the challenges together with his family. "What do you want from me, Emma?" he asked, defeated. Emma looked at him with a mixture of sadness and determination. "I want you to leave this house tomorrow morning. I want you to decide if you want to be part of this family, completely part of this family, including Adam, or if you prefer to continue running away from your responsibilities." "Emma, don't decide now," she continued. "Think carefully about what you want, because if you decide to come back, it will be to stay completely. It will be to be the father Adam deserves, the husband I deserve, and the man our daughters can respect." Emma started to walk up the stairs, but stopped and turned to Jason one last time. "And Jason, Rebecca is a good person who made a bad choice. She told me everything because she has integrity, something you apparently lost along the way." With those words, Emma went up to her room, leaving Jason alone in the living room, finally confronting the consequences of his choices. The first few days after the discovery of the betrayal were the darkest of Emma's life. Jason had left the house, leaving only a note promising to take financial care of the daughters, while thinking everything over. Emma had crumpled the paper and thrown it in the trash. Money? As if money could fix what he had broken. But Emma Mitchell was not a woman who surrendered to self-pity for long. The next morning, after crying everything she needed to cry, she woke up with a mental clarity she hadn't felt in months. Madison, always the most perceptive of the daughters, came downstairs and found her mother drinking coffee alone, something unusual in the Mitchell household. "Mom, where is Dad?" the teenager asked cautiously. Emma gathered her 4 daughters in the kitchen, with Adam playing quietly on the floor, oblivious to the family drama. "Girls, your dad and I are going through a very difficult time in our marriage. He's going to be out of the house for a while as we resolve some important issues," Emma explained with a firm voice, hiding the whirlwind of emotion she felt. "Are you getting a divorce?" Sarah asked directly, as was her way. The word cut like a knife, but Emma maintained her composure. "I don't know yet, honey. But I want you to know that regardless of what happens between your father and me, we love you very much. This has nothing to do with you." Jessica started to cry. Lucy hugged her mother tightly. Madison, taking on her role as the older sister, comforted the others with a maturity that broke Emma's heart. "Mom, we'll be okay," Madison said with conviction. "We always take care of each other." At that moment, looking at her brave daughters and Adam in his own little world, Emma made the most important decision of her life. She would not just be a survivor. She would be a winner. A week after Jason's departure, Emma realized she needed to take control of the family's financial situation immediately. She didn't know how long Jason would take to think over his choices, and she couldn't depend on him to support her children. It was time to return to Mitchell and Sons Pharmaceutical Transport, the company she had helped build from the ground up and had left in Jason's hands to dedicate herself fully to Adam. When Emma entered the office that Monday morning, she felt a mix of nostalgia and determination. That place had been her second home for so many years. Now she needed to reclaim it. "Emma, what a wonderful surprise to see you here," said Marcus, the company's accountant, but there was something in his eyes that Emma couldn't decipher. Concern? Panic? "Marcus, we need to talk. I want a complete analysis of the company's financial situation. All reports from the last 6 months on my desk by tomorrow." What Marcus revealed the next day left Emma in a state of absolute shock. In the months she had been absent, focusing completely on Adam and his special needs, Jason had made financial decisions that ranged from incompetent to disastrous. Risky investments in volatile markets, unnecessary loans with exorbitant interest, poorly negotiated contracts that benefited clients and harmed the company, rushed and poorly planned expansion projects. The company they had spent 18 years building, brick by brick, was on the brink of bankruptcy. "How did this happen, Marcus?" Emma asked, her voice dangerously calm as she flipped through stacks of documents that revealed the extent of the disaster. Marcus hesitated, choosing his words carefully. Jason had been very distracted in recent months. He made impulsive decisions without consulting anyone. He arrived late, left early, seemed to always have his head elsewhere. I tried to warn him several times, but, of course, he was distracted. He was too busy destroying his marriage to pay attention to the business that supported his family. Emma felt rage rise like volcanic lava, but she took a deep breath and transformed it into something much more powerful: absolute determination. Jason had destroyed their marriage and put the company at risk, but Emma was not going to let him destroy her children's future as well. Marcus, effective immediately, I am fully taking over the company's financial operations. I want a meeting with all directors tomorrow at 8 a.m. And Marcus, get ready. We're going to turn this company upside down. 2 weeks after returning to the company, Emma was leaving the therapy clinic after Adam's session when she instinctively stopped at a scene she saw. Rebecca was in the parking lot, carrying Sophia, who was clearly having a severe meltdown. The girl was crying inconsolably, struggling in her mother's arms, and Rebecca seemed on the verge of emotional collapse. Emma's first instinct was to pretend she hadn't seen them and drive away. After all, Rebecca was the woman who had slept with her husband, the woman who, even unknowingly, had been part of the destruction of her marriage. But then Emma saw the look of absolute despair on Rebecca's face. She saw Sophia thrashing in panic, and she remembered the special connection the girl had with Adam, that unique connection that transcended words and limitations. More importantly, Emma remembered who she truly was: a mother. And mothers help each other, even when it hurts. Do you need help? Emma asked, walking closer. Rebecca looked up, and Emma saw in her eyes a mix of surprise, gratitude, and deep shame. Emma, Sophia is having a meltdown, and I don't know what else to do. She's been like this since yesterday, and nothing works. Without saying anything else, Emma took Adam from his car seat and brought him close to Sophia. As always happened when the two children met, something magical occurred. Adam's presence had an immediate and calming effect on Sophia. The girl gradually stopped struggling, began to seek Adam's gaze, and the two connected in that special way that always moved their mothers. In a few minutes, Sophia was calm, gently holding Adam's hand, and the two children communicated in their silent, unique language. "Thank you," Rebecca whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Not just for now. For everything. For not hating me. For still letting Sophia come to the sessions here. For—" "Stop," Emma interrupted her, her voice gentler than she expected. "We're not doing this here." They remained silent for a few minutes, just watching Adam and Sophia interact. "Emma," Rebecca said finally, her voice full of emotion, "I need you to know, I'm completely done with that life. I don't work at that club anymore. I haven't seen Jason in weeks. I've completely cut all ties with all of that." Emma looked at her. "And how are you surviving? How are you paying for Sophia's therapies?" Rebecca lowered her eyes, embarrassed. "I'm working 3 different day jobs. Cleaning in the morning, telemarketing in the afternoon, working at a fast food place at night. I managed to reduce the therapy sessions to twice a week, but it's not enough," Emma completed, knowing well the astronomical costs of specialized treatments. Rebecca shook her head, the defeat clear in her eyes. "But it's what I have, and it's better than what I was doing before." Emma was silent for a long moment, watching Adam and Sophia, 2 innocent children, connected by something medicine couldn't fully explain. 2 mothers fighting alone, each with her pain and her battles. And then, Emma made a decision that would surprise even herself. "Rebecca, I want to make you a proposal," Emma said abruptly. Rebecca looked at her, confused, clearly expecting nothing more than continued silence, or perhaps never to be spoken to again. "A proposal?" Emma took a deep breath. What she was about to say went against everything her friends and family would likely expect of her. But Emma didn't build a business empire by doing what others expected. "I am completely restructuring my company. Jason drove it almost into bankruptcy in recent months, and I need to rebuild everything from scratch." Rebecca remained quiet, not understanding what Emma was driving at. "I need someone trustworthy to help me. Someone intelligent, detail-oriented, who understands the value of hard work and is not afraid to start from the bottom. Someone who knows what it means to fight for every penny." Rebecca's eyes widened as she began to understand. Are you offering me a job?" "I am offering an opportunity," Emma corrected, "for both of us. A decent salary that allows you to properly care for Sophia without having to work 3 jobs and kill yourself with exhaustion. flexible hours that respect therapy needs, and the chance to start over with dignity. Rebecca fell silent, processing the words, tears beginning to stream down again. Emma, why? After everything that happened, why would you do this for me? Emma looked at Adam and Sophia, still connected in their private world, and then stared Rebecca directly in the eyes. Because our friendship was real. What you did with Jason was a terrible mistake, but it doesn't define who you are as a person or as a mother. You had the courage to tell me the truth when you could have stayed silent. You ended everything as soon as you found out who I was. And you are working 3 jobs instead of returning to that easy life. That tells me a lot about your character. Emma paused, choosing her next words carefully. And more importantly, I believe everyone deserves a second chance. I believe in redemption. And I believe you can be the business partner I need right now. Rebecca broke down in tears, tears of gratitude, relief, hope, and something she hadn't felt in a long time, the possibility of a dignified future. I don't know what to say. I don't deserve this, Emma. Not after what I did. Maybe not, Emma agreed. But Sophia does. And sometimes we do things not because people deserve them, but because of who we are. And I am someone who believes in second chances. Rebecca wiped her tears and looked at Emma with a determination that the businesswoman immediately recognized. It was the look of a fighter who had just been given a chance to prove her worth. Yes, Rebecca said firmly. I accept, and I promise you won't regret it. I will work harder than anyone else. I will prove I deserve this opportunity. I know you will, Emma replied simply. And so began one of the most improbable and powerful partnerships the business world has ever seen. 2 women united by pain, strengthened by forgiveness, and determined to rebuild not only a company, but their own lives. The first few months of working together were intense and revealing. Rebecca arrived every day at 7 a.m. and often didn't leave until 9 p.m., with a brief break to take Sophia to therapy. Emma quickly discovered that Rebecca was not just a dedicated employee. She was a brilliant business mind that had been stifled by life circumstances. Emma, look at these numbers, Rebecca said one morning, just 3 weeks after starting, showing a detailed analysis of the pharmaceutical market she had done in the late hours. I realized we're competing in a saturated general distribution market, but there's a completely untapped niche. Emma studied the charts and projections Rebecca had meticulously prepared. Medications and equipment for the treatment of childhood neurological conditions, Rebecca continued, her voice gaining enthusiasm. It's a rapidly growing market, but the big distributors ignore it because the individual volumes are small. But if we add up all the small volumes, we create a large volume with better margins and less competition, Emma completed, her eyes shining with the same excitement. Rebecca, that's brilliant. And there's more, Rebecca continued, turning the page. Who better to understand this market than 2 mothers who live this reality every day? We know exactly what these families need, what the difficulties are, where the system fails. Emma was silent for a moment, processing not just the brilliance of the business idea, but something much bigger that was being born there. Rebecca, this isn't just a market niche. It's a purpose. Over the next 6 months, the 2 women worked tirelessly to transform Mitchell & Sons. The company that was on the verge of bankruptcy began a complete metamorphosis, specializing in pharmaceutical distribution for pediatric neurology. They renegotiated predatory contracts Jason had signed. They closed strategic partnerships with specialized manufacturers. They developed an efficient distribution system that reduced costs and improved deadlines. But the most important thing was the way they worked together. Emma with her business experience and strategic vision. Rebecca with her analytical ability and obsessive attention to detail. You 2 look like a perfectly synchronized machine, commented Marcus, the accountant, after a particularly impressive presentation to investors. Emma and Rebecca exchanged a look. Perfectly synchronized machine. Who would have thought that 2 women united by the betrayal of the same man would become the most formidable business duo he had ever seen? It was during a meeting with suppliers that the seed for what would become Project Adam was planted. Emma and Rebecca were negotiating the distribution of a specific medication for children with autism when the representative from the pharmaceutical industry casually commented, "You know, It's a shame that so many families can't access this medication. The health plan bureaucracies, the costs, the lack of information. It's a completely broken system. Emma and Rebecca exchanged glances. They knew that reality intimately. How many families do you estimate are affected by this? Emma asked. In this state alone? Thousands. Nationally? Hundreds of thousands. When the representative left, Emma remained silent for a long time, looking out the office window. Emma, what are you thinking? Rebecca asked, recognizing that distant look that meant the businesswoman's mind was working on something big. I'm thinking we're doing it wrong. What do you mean? Emma turned to Rebecca, her eyes shining with an intensity that the young woman had learned to recognize as the birth of a great idea. We are distributing medications and equipment. That's important, of course. But the problem is much bigger than just distribution, Rebecca. The whole system is broken. Rebecca leaned forward, interested. Think with me, Emma continued, starting to pace the office as she always did when developing a concept. A mother finds out her child has severe autism. What does she face? First, the emotional shock, Rebecca replied, knowing that journey well. Exactly. And she's alone in that shock because there's no adequate psychological support for these mothers. Then what? She needs to understand the available treatments, but the information is confusing and scattered. Yes, and then she needs to pay for these treatments, but the costs are absurd, and she'll likely have to quit her career to care for the child full-time. The two women fell silent for a moment, each reliving her own painful journey. Emma, Rebecca said slowly, you're suggesting we create something beyond a distribution company. I'm suggesting we create a complete support system, Emma said, her voice vibrating with passion. Psychological support for the mothers. Professional training programs, so they can work part-time from home. Centralized information system about treatments. And most importantly, Emma stopped and looked directly at Rebecca. We need to change the laws. We need to create legislation that protects these families financially. Rebecca was speechless. Emma, that is massive. Exactly, because the problem is massive. That night, Emma stayed awake until 3 a.m., developing the concept that would change their lives and the lives of thousands of families. When she finally went to sleep, she had a detailed 47-page plan on the table. The next morning, she presented the plan to Rebecca. We'll call it Project Adam, Emma said simply. Rebecca read the first few pages, and tears began to stream down her face. There was not just a business plan, but a life mission, a purpose that would transform their pain into hope for thousands of other mothers. When do we start? Rebecca asked. Emma smiled. Today. In the following months, Emma and Rebecca worked with an intensity bordering on obsession. The company continued to operate and prosper under the new direction, but Project Adam consumed every free moment they had. Emma's mother became a constant presence in the house, looking after Adam and helping the girls when necessary. The girls themselves took on more responsibilities, proud to see their mother fighting for something so important. Mom, you look different, Madison commented one evening during dinner. Different how? Emma asked, serving Lucy's plate. Stronger. Like nothing could bring you down. Emma smiled, but deep down she knew Madison was right. She was becoming a version of herself she didn't even know existed. The first component of Project Adam was launched 3 months after the idea's conception. A free psychological support program for mothers of children with special needs. Emma and Rebecca hired 3 specialized psychologists and created support groups that met twice a week. The demand was immediate and overwhelming. We have a waiting list of 200 mothers in the first month alone, Rebecca reported, mixing pride and concern. Then we expand, Emma replied without hesitation. Hire more professionals. This is not the time to think small. The second component was a professional training program that allowed mothers to work part-time from home in areas such as customer service, basic accounting, and administrative assistance. The idea is that they can have a decent income without having to completely abandon the care of their children, Emma explained during a presentation to potential corporate partners. The third component was an online system for centralized information on treatments, qualified professionals, legal rights, and available resources. It's not right that every mother has to figure all this out on her own, Rebecca said during the platform's development. We're going to make that process easier. In 6 months, Project Adam had become a state reference for supporting atypical families. But Emma knew that the most important and most difficult component was still missing: changing the laws. Congressman Morrison, do you have children? Emma asked during her first meeting with the state legislator. The middle-aged man, sitting comfortably in his leather armchair, smiled condescendingly. Yes, I do. 2 healthy boys. Emma noticed how he emphasized the word healthy, as if it were a personal trophy. Imagine that one of them was born with special needs. Severe autism, for example. Your wife would have to leave her career to provide full-time care for that child. The costs for therapies, medications, and specialized professionals would be astronomical. And now imagine that, besides all that, you ran the risk of losing your home because you can no longer afford the mortgage. The congressman began to look uncomfortable. Well, there are social programs, which are completely insufficient and bureaucratic, Emma interrupted firmly. Congressman, I am here to propose something revolutionary. A law that protects the mortgages of atypical families, allowing up to 40% of the monthly payment to be redirected to the child's special care. Rebecca, sitting next to Emma, opened a folder and began to show meticulously compiled data. We have the numbers here, Congressman. Currently, 67% of families with severely autistic children face serious financial difficulties. 34% lose their homes to foreclosure within 5 years of the diagnosis, and 89% of mothers are forced to completely abandon their careers. The congressman flipped through the documents, clearly impressed by the level of detail. This is impressive, but you understand that passing a law like this would be complicated. The banks will resist, the financial lobbies. Congressman, Emma leaned forward, her voice charged with an intensity that made the man stop talking. These children deserve to have a home. These mothers deserve to be psychologically well and happy, even amid impossible conditions. And this society has a responsibility to support its most vulnerable families. Emma paused, letting her words sink in. We are not asking for charity. We are asking for justice. And if you are not willing to fight for these families, we will find someone who is. It was one meeting of many. Emma and Rebecca spent the next 6 months in a tireless circuit of meetings with legislators, presentations to committees, and public awareness campaigns. They faced resistance from financial lobbies, political skeptics, and entrenched bureaucrats. But for every closed door, they found 2 open ones by people who had been touched by their stories. You know you're changing the world, right? Rebecca said one night, after a particularly difficult hearing at the State Assembly. We are changing our part of the world, Emma corrected, exhausted but determined. And that's already a lot. 2 years after discovering Jason's betrayal, Emma was sitting in the gallery of the State Assembly, Rebecca at her side, and their 5 children behind her. Bill 247, which became known in political circles as the Emma Mitchell Law, was being voted on. The law guaranteed mortgage protection for families with children who have severe special needs, allowing up to 40% of the monthly value to be redirected to treatments and therapies, without penalties or risk of foreclosure. Emma held Rebecca's hand so tightly that her fingers were white. In her other hand, she held Adam's hand, who was surprisingly calm, as if he understood the importance of the moment. The Speaker of the Assembly began the roll call. Representative Anderson? Yes. Representative Morrison? Yes. One by one, the votes were counted. Emma could barely breathe. When the last vote was tallied, the Speaker of the Assembly struck the gavel. With 47 votes in favor and 0 against, Bill 247 is approved and will proceed to the governor's sanction. The gallery erupted in applause. Emma collapsed in tears onto Rebecca's shoulder, who was also crying profusely. Madison, Sarah, Jessica, and Lucy cheered with joy. Adam, not fully understanding but feeling his mother's emotion, also began to clap. We did it, Rebecca whispered in Emma's ear. My God, Emma, we really did it. Emma couldn't speak. She just cried. Tears of joy, relief, pride, and achievement. She had transformed her personal pain into something that would help thousands of families. She had proven that it was possible to start over after the most devastating betrayal. She had shown the world that forgiveness and redemption were not only possible, but powerful. After the vote, dozens of mothers approached Emma and Rebecca, each one sharing their stories of struggle and gratitude. "You saved my family," one woman said, holding Emma's hands tightly. "I was about to lose my house. Now, with this law, I can keep my son in treatment and keep our home too." It was stories like this that made it all worthwhile. Every difficult meeting, every closed door, every sleepless night, it all led to this moment of not just personal, but collective victory. In the months following the law's approval, Project Adam exploded in growth and impact. What began as a state initiative quickly gained national attention. Emma became a recognized public figure, invited to speak at conferences, participate in panels on disability rights, and advise other states that wanted to implement similar legislation. Rebecca, who had started as an employee given a second chance, officially became co-founder and chief operating officer of not only Project Adam, but also the company, which was now called Mitchell & Martinez Pharmaceutical Solutions. Who would have thought two single mothers would create an empire like this? Rebecca commented one morning, looking out the window of the new office, much larger and more modern than the previous one. "Two warrior mothers," Emma corrected with a smile. "Because that's what we are." The transformation in their lives was visible not only in the business and political results, but in small and significant details. Rebecca had bought a 2-bedroom apartment in a safe neighborhood. Sophia had her own room, lovingly decorated, and continued to progress in the now more frequent and higher quality therapies. Emma had completely remodeled her family routine. With the help of her mother and a team of home therapists, she managed to balance her explosive professional life with the needs of Adam and the girls. The 4 daughters had become extraordinary young women, inspired by their mother's strength and determination. Madison, now 18, had been accepted into a prestigious law school. "I want to be a human rights lawyer, Mom. You showed me that one person can change the system." Sarah and Jessica, the twins, had decided to pursue careers in occupational therapy and speech therapy, respectively. "We want to help children like Adam and Sophia," they explained. Lucy, the family artist, had developed a complete line of visual therapeutic materials for children with autism, which were now sold through Project Adam. "You are my biggest inspirations," Emma told them one evening during a family dinner. "We know, Mom," Lucy replied with a smile. "But you are ours too." 3 years after its conception, Project Adam had transformed into a nonprofit organization with a presence in 15 states. The national headquarters was located in Atlanta, in a modern building that Emma and Rebecca had purchased and renovated specifically to house all the programs. On the ground floor, there was the Psychological Support Center, where 25 specialized psychologists provided free services to mothers and families of atypical children. The second floor housed the professional training rooms, equipped with state-of-the-art computers, where hundreds of mothers learned skills that would allow them to work from home. The third floor housed administrative offices and a dedicated team of lawyers who helped families navigate the complex legal and health insurance system. On the fourth floor, Emma had insisted on creating something special, a community center for special needs children, where Adam, Sophia, and dozens of other children could interact in a safe and adapted environment, while their mothers participated in programs or simply rested. "This is the heart of Project Adam," Emma would explain to visitors and investors, "because it's no use supporting the mothers if we don't also take care of the children." The impact statistics were impressive. More than 5,000 families directly served. 87% of participating mothers reported significant improvement in mental health. 92% had managed to re-enter the job market in some capacity. 0 foreclosures among families participating in the mortgage protection program. But for Emma and Rebecca, the most important numbers were the individual stories, like that of Maria, a 28-year-old single mother who had attempted suicide after her son's severe autism diagnosis. Through Project Adam, she found psychological support, learned programming skills, and now worked remotely, earning a decent salary while caring for her son at home. "You saved my life," Maria told Emma during a Project Adam event. Literally, I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for you. Or the story of Jennifer and Carol, a lesbian couple who had been discriminated against by multiple organizations until they found Project Adam, where they were welcomed without judgment and received all the necessary support to care for their 2 autistic twin daughters. You treated us the way family deserves to be treated, Carol said, tears in her eyes. Each story was a confirmation that the painful path Emma and Rebecca had walked had a greater purpose. The relationship between Emma and Rebecca had evolved from something almost impossible into one of the most solid and profound friendships either of them could imagine. They were not just business partners or co-founders of a project. They were sisters in the truest sense of the word, united not by blood, but by something much more powerful: shared pain, mutual forgiveness, and a common purpose. Do you ever wonder how we got here? Rebecca asked one afternoon, as they watched Adam and Sophia play in Project Adam's community center. Every day, Emma replied, and I'm still amazed. Emma, I need to tell you something, Rebecca continued, her voice serious. I will never forget what you did for me. You had every reason to hate me, to destroy me, to ensure I never had a dignified life. Rebecca, let me finish, Rebecca interrupted gently. Instead, you gave me a second chance. You gave me dignity when I didn't deserve it. You showed me what true forgiveness is. And more than that, you gave me a family. Tears streamed down Rebecca's face as she continued. I was a broken woman, Emma, doing terrible things out of desperation, destroying my own soul one day at a time. And you saved me. You didn't just give me a job. You gave me a purpose. You gave me back my humanity. Emma took Rebecca's hand, also crying now. Rebecca, you saved yourself. You had the courage to tell me the truth when you could have stayed silent. You had the strength to completely change your life. And you had the determination to become the extraordinary woman you are today. But you gave me the opportunity. And you seized it as few people would. The 2 women hugged, and in that moment, years of pain, betrayal, forgiveness, and redemption culminated in a profound understanding. Sometimes the most devastating betrayals in life are just disguises for the most important purposes. If Jason hadn't betrayed Emma with Rebecca, they never would have met in this way. They never would have developed this impossible friendship. They never would have created Project Adam, which was changing thousands of lives. The pain had been real, but the purpose born from it was even more real. For years after leaving home, Jason Mitchell finally gathered the courage to do what he should have done a long time ago. It was a Saturday afternoon when he showed up at Project Adam headquarters. Emma was in her office, working on a proposal to expand the program to 5 more states, when the receptionist called. Emma, there's a Jason Mitchell here. He says he's your ex-husband and would really like to speak with you. Emma felt her stomach clench. She hadn't seen Jason in person since that devastating night 4 years ago, when she had kicked him out of the house. They had communicated only through lawyers to finalize the divorce and establish visitation agreements with the girls. Send him up, Emma finally said. When Jason entered the office, Emma barely recognized him. He was thinner, with gray hair he hadn't had before, and there was an expression in his eyes she had never seen, genuine humility. Emma, he began, his voice hesitant. Thank you for seeing me. Sit down, Jason. What do you want? Jason sat in the chair across from Emma's desk, his nervous hands betraying his discomfort. I came to ask for forgiveness. Emma said nothing, just watched him with a neutral expression that didn't reveal her emotions. I know what I did was unforgivable, Jason continued, the words coming out with difficulty. I betrayed you in the worst possible way. I betrayed our family. I put our company at risk. And worst of all, I rejected my own son because of his limitations. For the first time since he started talking, Jason's voice cracked. Emma, I was a coward. A weak, selfish man who ran away from his responsibilities instead of facing them. You were fighting alone for our family while I was destroying everything. Why are you here now, Jason? Emma asked calmly. After 4 years, why now? Jason took a deep breath. Because I've spent these 4 years in therapy, trying to understand who I became and how I got so far from the man I swore to be. And because I read about everything you've built, Project Adam, the law, everything, and I realized how much I lost. Not just you, but the chance to be part of something important." He paused, gathering courage for what came next. "And because I want to be part of my son's life, I want to know Adam, not as an obligation or a burden, but as my son who deserves a present father." Emma remained silent for a long moment, studying the man in front of her. She saw sincerity in his eyes, but she also saw years of pain he had caused. "Jason, you'll have to give me a second. There's someone who needs to be in this conversation." Emma picked up the phone and dialed. "Rebecca, can you come to my office, please? It's important." Jason paled when he heard the name. "Rebecca she works here? She's my partner and co-founder of Project Adam," Emma said simply. 5 minutes later, Rebecca entered the office and stopped abruptly when she saw Jason. All the color drained from her face. "Jason," she said, her voice barely audible. "Rebecca," Jason replied, equally shocked. Emma observed the interaction between them with a calmness she didn't know she possessed. "Sit down, both of you. Jason came here to ask for forgiveness, and I think he owes that apology to both of you." Jason looked from Emma to Rebecca, clearly in emotional conflict. The two women he had betrayed were there, together, and from the professional expression of both and the shared office, it was clear that they had built something far greater than he could have imagined. "I didn't know you, that you worked together," Jason began hesitantly. "We don't just work together," Emma said. "Rebecca is my best friend and business partner. We built all this together." Jason shook his head, processing the impossible information. The wife he had cheated on and the lover he cheated with had become partners and best friends. It was something his mind could barely comprehend. "Jason, you said you came to ask for forgiveness," Rebecca said, her voice stronger now. "So say what you need to say." Jason took a deep breath and turned to Emma first. "Emma, I spent 4 years trying to understand how I became the man who betrayed you. How I could be so selfish, so cowardly, so cruel. You were fighting alone for our family, dedicating every minute of your day to caring for our special needs son. And I ran away. I ran into the arms of another woman instead of standing by your side and fighting with you." Tears began to stream down Jason's face. "You deserved a partner, not a coward. Adam deserved a father, not a man who saw him as a burden. Our daughters deserve to see an example of love and commitment, not betrayal and abandonment." He paused, wiping his tears. "I have no excuses. I have no justifications. I only have one request. Forgive me, not because I deserve it, but because you deserve to be free of any weight I may have left in your life." Emma remained silent, watching the man who was once her everything. She felt a deep peace realizing that she no longer felt anger, pain, or longing, only compassion for a man who had lost so much due to his own choices. Jason then turned to Rebecca, and his expression changed to something more complex, guilt mixed with confusion. "Rebecca, I used you. I thought I was saving you, that I was some kind of white knight, but in reality, I was just using you as an escape from my responsibilities. I put you in an impossible position, made you an unwitting accomplice in the destruction of a family, and—" "Jason," Rebecca interrupted him, her voice firm. "You didn't use me. I manipulated you from the beginning. I saw an unhappy man with money and took advantage of the situation. I am not a victim in this." "But, let me finish," Rebecca said, raising her hand. "What I did was wrong, completely wrong. I slept with a married man for money, regardless of whether I knew the wife's identity or not. I was an accomplice in the betrayal of a family, and I've carried that guilt every day since." Rebecca looked at Emma before continuing. "But Emma gave me something you never gave anyone, Jason. She gave me a second chance. She forgave the unforgivable. She transformed me from someone who was destroying herself into someone who now helps build lives." Rebecca turned fully to Jason now. "So yes, I forgive you for the role you played in my life. Because without that role, without that terrible mistake, I never would have found my true purpose. But you need to understand something. Forgiveness does not erase what happened. It only frees us from the burden of it. Emma finally spoke, her voice calm but charged with an authority Jason had never heard before. Jason, I forgive you. Completely. I forgive the betrayal, the abandonment, the contempt you showed for our son. I forgive everything. Jason began to cry openly now, years of guilt finally finding release. But forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, Emma continued. And it doesn't mean you can just walk back into our lives as if nothing happened. I understand, Jason said through his tears. You said you want to be part of Adam's life. But Jason, Adam is not a redemption project for you to feel better about yourself. He is a special needs child who needs consistency, patience, and unconditional love. I know. Do you know? Emma leaned forward, her intensity rising. Because 4 years ago, you saw Adam as a burden, as something that ruined your perfect life. Can you look me in the eye now and tell me that has changed? Jason met Emma's gaze and answered with an honesty she had to respect. I don't know if it has completely changed. I've spent 4 years in therapy trying to deconstruct my prejudice, my lack of empathy, my selfishness. I've made progress. I've learned. I've grown. But it would be dishonest to say I'm completely cured of who I was. Emma nodded, appreciating the brutal honesty. Then here's what's going to happen, Jason. You can continue to be part of the girls' lives. They are almost adults now and can decide for themselves how much contact they want to have with you. Jason nodded, grateful. But Adam. Emma paused significantly. Adam will only have you in his life when and if you prove you love him, not despite his condition, but including his condition. When you demonstrate that you can be the father he deserves, not the father you wished he was. How do I prove that? Jason asked. Time. Emma answered simply. You spend the next few months, maybe years, learning about autism, volunteering at Project Adam, working with special needs children, demonstrating through actions, not words, that you have truly changed. Emma stood up, indicating that the conversation was coming to an end. And then maybe, just maybe, you will earn the privilege of knowing your son. Because being in Adam's life is a privilege, Jason, not a right. Jason stood up too, wiping the last of his tears. Thank you, Emma. And thank you, Rebecca. You are much stronger and more generous women than I ever deserve. It's not about what you deserve, Rebecca said. It's about who we choose to be. And we choose to be women who forgive, who believe in redemption, but who also fiercely protect those we love. When Jason left the office, Emma and Rebecca stood in silence for a long moment. Do you think he will really change? Rebecca finally asked. I don't know, Emma answered honestly. But we gave him the same thing I gave you, a chance to prove who he can truly be. The rest is up to him. You are incredible, you know that, Rebecca said, hugging Emma. The way you handle all of this, the forgiveness without being naive, the compassion without being weak. I learned from the best, Emma replied, returning the hug. 5 years after that meeting in the office, Emma Mitchell was on the main stage of the National Conference on Disability Rights, about to deliver her closing speech. In the audience of 5,000 people, Rebecca sat in the front row next to Sophia, now 14 years old and visibly more communicative and confident. Adam, at 12, sat quietly beside them, wearing his special headphones that helped him cope with noisy environments. Madison had graduated from law school and now worked as the chief legal counsel for Project Adam. Sarah was in her final year of occupational therapy. Jessica worked as a speech therapist at one of Project Adam's centers. And Lucy had launched her own artistic therapeutic materials company, in partnership with the project. Jason was seated in the back rows. Over the past 5 years, he had fulfilled everything Emma asked. He volunteered hundreds of hours at Project Adam. He underwent intensive therapy to work through his prejudices and fears. He participated in support groups for parents of special needs children. And slowly, very slowly, Emma had allowed him to approach Adam. First just observing from a distance during therapy, then participating in supervised sessions, and finally, for the last 6 months, spending regular time with his son. It wasn't the father-son relationship Jason had imagined years ago, but it was real, it was honest, and it was built on true love, not the conditional love he had before. Emma looked out at the audience and began her speech. When my son Adam was diagnosed with severe autism 9 years ago, I thought my world had ended. When I discovered my husband was cheating on me with my best friend, I was certain it had ended, but I was wrong both times. The audience was in absolute silence, each person captivated by the story they knew from the newspapers, but were now hearing directly from Emma. What I thought was the end was just the beginning of the most important journey of my life. The journey that would transform me from a broken woman into a fighter, from a victim into an agent of change. Emma paused, her eyes meeting Rebecca's in the audience. I learned that forgiveness is not a sign of weakness. It is the ultimate act of strength. I learned that the most important people in our lives can arrive in the most improbable ways. And I learned that our greatest pain can be transformed into our greatest purpose. Emma's voice gained intensity as she continued. Project Adam started as a crazy idea from 2 desperate mothers who wanted to change the system. Today, we are present in 35 states. We have helped over 50,000 families. We have managed to pass protective legislation in 18 states. And we're just getting started. Enthusiastic applause echoed through the auditorium. But the numbers don't tell the whole story. The real story is in every mother who no longer has to choose between working and caring for a special needs child. It's in every family that hasn't lost their home because they now have legal protection. It's in every child who receives the treatment they deserve not because their parents are rich, but because it is their right. Emma stopped and looked directly at the camera transmitting the event nationally. If you are an atypical mother listening to this right now, know this. You are not alone. If you have lost everything and don't know how to start over, know this. You are stronger than you imagine. If you have made mistakes and think you don't deserve a second chance, know this. We all deserve redemption. Tears were streaming openly down Emma's face now, but her voice remained strong. Life took away the marriage I thought would last forever. It took away financial security. It took away the illusion that I had control over everything. But it gave me something infinitely more valuable: purpose, strength, and the absolute certainty that when we lose everything, we discover who we truly are. Emma looked at Adam in the audience, who was looking up at her with his blue eyes, a small smile on his face. Adam, my son, you taught me more about unconditional love than any book could teach. You showed me that normal is just a word, and that true beauty lies in how unique each person is. You are my teacher, my inspiration, and the reason I wake up every day determined to change the world. The audience was openly weeping now. And Rebecca, Emma continued, turning to look directly at her best friend, you taught me the true meaning of forgiveness. You showed me that our history does not define our future, that 2 women united by pain can create something much more powerful than anything we could create alone. Rebecca was sobbing, as was Sophia next to her. So I leave you with this. No matter how impossible your situation seems right now, no matter how deep your pain, no matter how many times you have fallen, you can get up. You can start over. You can turn your pain into purpose. Emma raised her fists in the air, her voice vibrating with absolute conviction. We are mothers. We are warriors. And together we are unstoppable. The auditorium erupted in deafening applause. People rose in an ovation that lasted for 5 full minutes. When Emma stepped off the stage, she was immediately embraced by Rebecca, her daughters, and by Adam, who rarely initiated physical contact, but who hugged his mother tightly, sensing her emotion even without fully understanding the words. Jason watched from a distance, tears streaming down his face, finally fully understanding what he had lost and what these 2 extraordinary women had built from the ashes of his betrayal. Today, 10 years after that devastating night when she discovered the betrayal, Emma Mitchell is nationally recognized as one of the greatest advocates for the rights of atypical families. Project Adam has become one of the largest nonprofit organizations in the country, with a presence in all 50 states and international expansion beginning. The Emma Mitchell Law has been adopted nationally, protecting hundreds of thousands of families from losing their homes while caring for children with special needs. Emma and Rebecca are regularly listed among the most influential women in the country. They have co-authored 3 books on maternal entrepreneurship, overcoming adversity, and the power of forgiveness. But for Emma, the true success is not in the awards, the public recognition, or the impressive numbers of Project Adam. The real success is in Adam, who, now 13, can communicate through short sentences, has friends at the special school he attends, and smiles more than he cried. It is in Sophia, who has become a sister by heart to Adam and has developed abilities her doctors said were impossible. It is in her 4 daughters, who have become strong, empathetic women determined to make a difference in the world. It is in the unshakable friendship with Rebecca, proving that sometimes the strongest bonds are those forged in the most improbable circumstances. And it is in the letter Jason wrote to Emma on Adam's last birthday. Emma, I don't expect you to read this, but I need to write it. Yesterday, Adam called me Papa for the first time. It was only 2 syllables, but they were the 2 most important words I have ever heard in my life. You were right 5 years ago. I needed to learn to love him, not despite who he is, but for who he is. And today, I finally understand the difference. I will never get back the years I lost. I will never fix what I broke. But every day, I will wake up grateful for the second, no, third, chance you gave me. You are the most extraordinary woman I have ever known, and I am a fool for taking so long to realize it. With all gratitude and respect, Jason. Emma had read the letter, cried, and put it away in a drawer. Not for the man Jason was, but for the man he was trying to become. Because in the end, this story is not about betrayal, about pain, or about loss. It is about 2 women who transformed the greatest pain of their lives into the greatest purpose. It is about the power of true forgiveness, not the kind that forgets, but the kind that frees. It is about the strength of unconditional maternal love. And above all, it is about the fundamental truth that Emma and Rebecca proved to themselves and to the world. No matter how deeply you fall, you can rise stronger. No matter how devastating the betrayal, you can rebuild something even more beautiful. And no matter what the world says about you, you define who you are through your choices. Emma Mitchell and Rebecca Martinez chose to be warriors. And in the process, they changed not only their own lives, but the lives of hundreds of thousands of families who now have hope, because 2 mothers decided that pain would not have the last word. Maternal love would. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and share this story. Because every woman deserves to know that within her, there's a warrior waiting to emerge. And every time a woman rises after falling, she shows the way for others to rise too.